Welcome back, agents. In this briefing, we'll go over SCP-5000 to try and answer why. The SCP Foundation is well known to be the most powerful organization in the world by securing, containing, and protecting humanity with its vast resources from the anomalous. But what if that same organization with all of its power turned against humanity and let these anomalies loose? Well, SCP-5000 depicts a scenario where this very situation unfolds. But what could drive the Foundation so far from its goal of protecting humanity? Get ready as we uncover one of the biggest mysteries in the SCP Foundation. SCP-5000 itself is a non-functional mechanical suit identified within its internal schematics as an absolute exclusion harness designed by the SCP Foundation themselves. Although SCP-5000 is believed to have once possessed a number of anomalous functions intended to protect and benefit its occupant, damage inflicted to it in the past means that it is currently only capable of basic file storage. SCP-5000 first appeared in a flash of light within SCP-579's containment chamber. SCP-579 is a bit difficult to describe as the entire description has been expunged from the record. The Foundation has decided it was best to keep it contained and left unbothered as it's very dangerous. The suit contained a corpse genetically identical to Foundation employee Pietro Wilson. Pietro Wilson is currently employed at Exclusionary Site 62, and amnestic therapy has confirmed he has no knowledge of SCP-5000 or memories concerning the events detailed within its archives. As mentioned previously, the suit has sustained enough damage to make it basically just a fancy filing cabinet. The facility Pietro is working at is what's called an exclusionary site, which is equipped with advanced technology making it immune to time or reality restructuring events. So if there were an event to happen on Earth that would cause a drastic change in the history or reality of the planet, the personnel inside an exclusionary site wouldn't be affected, allowing them to make note of the changes. The first journal entry is from, of course, Pietro, and the rest of this story will play out through these journal entries. Pietro starts by stating his name and exclaiming that he has no idea what is happening, but that he thinks he is the only one left alive at the exclusionary site. The date is January 2nd, 2020, and he has just escaped from the site. An MTF going by the name Zeta, 19, Lonely Only, entered the site with proper identification and clearance, which Pietro remarks how they could be undercover insurgency infiltrators, but he isn't sure. They gathered everyone into the canteen and began shooting. They were extremely thorough, being sure to put a few bullets into everyone on their way out. Pietro mentions how the MTF didn't even take anything with them. It seems like they were there only to kill all of the personnel inside. Fortunately, Pietro was able to make his way to SCP-5000 and put it on. The suit's perception filter works as a sort of invisibility cloak, but Pietro remarks, "This perception filter thing doesn't mean people can't see me, but it does mean they can't recognize the fact that they can see me," which I guess is the same thing when you get down to it. Using this ability, Pietro is able to escape the facility and makes his way towards a safe house. He hears explosions in the distance as Hez leaving the site and hopes that the Foundation has sent in some teams to deal with this. Pietro finally makes it to the safe house and says that he's never been more happy to see a bottle of water in his life, even though the suit is supposed to sustain the wearer's bodies and needs. Looking to get some rest before he leaves the safe house, Pietro boots up one of the Foundation computers and is shocked by what he sees. The SCP Foundation had sent a message to every government, news organizations, and anomalous agency in the world. This on its own would be quite surprising, but it's what the message says that is truly disturbing. The message reads, "The following is a message composed via consensus of the O5 Council. For those who are not currently aware of our existence, we represent the organization known as the SCP Foundation. Our previous missions centered around the containment and study of anomalous objects, entities, and other assorted phenomena. This mission was the focus of our organization for more than 100 years. Due to circumstances outside of our control, this directive has now changed. Our new mission will be the extermination of the human race. There will be no further communication." You heard that correctly. The SCP Foundation has just broken the veil of secrecy to announce war on all of humanity. Everyone's first thought, though, is why? What would make the Foundation go against everything they stood for and declare war on all of humanity? The only reason they could provide is this vague quote about how it was due to circumstances outside of their control, whatever that means. The Foundation is all about control. So what could be so bad that is forcing them to do this? Pietro reads on trying to piece together what exactly is happening here. He sees that the Foundation has begun releasing anomalies that it once fought so hard to contain. The following is a small list of the vast number of anomalies which the Foundation has released to destroy humanity. SCP-096 is a humanoid entity that is typically docile and relatively easy to contain, showing no signs of aggression. Unless, of course, you see its face, whether that's through direct line of sight or a picture of the entity spread online, which is exactly what the Foundation did. Once you've seen the entity's face, it will begin a rage state which has so far been impossible to stop, at least until the person who has seen its face has been terminated. The entity will travel at great speeds, stopping at nothing to kill whoever dared to look at it. The Foundation uses this as an opportunity to cause mass casualties by leaking pictures of SCP-096 onto the internet, causing it to tear across the globe until its photos were taken down, but it's likely still hunting. SCP-169 is a massive sea creature known as the Leviathan. It's believed to be thousands of kilometers in length and can cause earthquakes and more by simply breathing once every 3 months. The Foundation detonated a large number of nuclear bombs on the creature's back, causing it to move slightly, resulting in devastating earthquakes and tsunamis across the world. SCP-662 is a small bell, which when rung summons a butler named Mr. Deeds, who is capable of carrying out almost any task asked of it. The Foundation seems to be using Mr. Deeds to take out major heads of state, as he has appeared across the world, assassinating major political figures before disappearing. SCP-610 is one of the deadliest diseases in the world and is highly infectious. The Foundation has begun spreading it across major cities, such as New York and Delhi. The disease spreads quickly by distorting living tissue and turning people into something else. Fortunately, however, the spread of the disease is eventually halted by the combined efforts of the GOC and the Church of the Broken God, both organizations seemingly not on board with the Foundation's plan of wiping out humanity. SCP-682, the hard-to-destroy reptile, is simply released. You can only imagine the chaos this caused. Next, Pietro finds some news footage of a reporter at an evacuation tent in Sweden, set up by the Global Occult Coalition. The scene is chaotic and frantic, as patients are being treated by doctors in full protective gear. The reporter repeats and urges people to follow the GOC's message to evacuate if they have not already and to seal themselves inside their houses as soon as possible. A doctor can be seen in the background talking to a GOC soldier, explaining to him that a patient just died and that they need to get the eraser ready immediately. The reporter follows the doctor out of the tent, and we see a field containing a large number of similar tents. In the tent the reporter just left, a loud buzzing sound can be heard, and several flashing lights can be seen. Thick smoke pours out of a gap at the top of the tent. The reporter, seemingly shocked, recovers herself, and continues telling any residents still in compromised areas to keep an eye on those around them, and to report any noticeable minty smell exuding from someone. If this happens, they're to be quarantined immediately. This is a reference to SCP-447, which is a small green sphere that expels a green slime. The slime is edible and even tastes minty with various other anomalous enhancing properties, but it becomes incredibly dangerous if it comes into contact with a dead body. We don't know what exactly happens when SCP-447 comes in direct contact with a dead body, as it is expunged from the record. But it's safe to say whatever happens can't be good, and it seems like the GOC is working very hard to erase all dead bodies from existence before that happens. Pietro believes he can stay at the safe house and in the exclusion suit and survive for years safe from the chaos outside. But he's conflicted between, quote, sitting there without knowing what's going on in the world and not really wanting to know what's going on. As he sit there, he remembers a time in his youth where he was really into detective tales and he wanted to be a detective. So he set out to solve the mystery of whatever was knocking over his dad's potted plants. He set up secret cameras in hopes of catching whoever is responsible. What he found was rather benign, however. It was just a stray cat. When he told his dad, though, his dad proceeded to kick the cat to death. He can't help but think that everyone would have been better off if he had just minded his own business. But this situation is different. He'd rather be doing something than nothing. Besides, with the exclusion suit, he remarks how he's basically just a tourist to the end of the world. With that, Pietro leaves the safe house and heads for the nearest major Foundation facility, Site 19, in seek of answers. Shortly after leaving the safe house, Pietro encounters MTF Epsilon 6 village idiots, but thanks to the suit, they don't know he's observing them. The MTF is positioned in an open field standing in a line, shoulder to shoulder. Pietro watches in horror as the MTF commander takes out his knife and stabs the first soldier in his shoulder. Weirdly, however, the soldier does not seem to react. The commander continues down the line, stabbing each soldier in the shoulder with no reactions until he reaches the 8th and final soldier. The commander violently stabs the 8th soldier in the shoulder, to which the soldier screams out in pain. The commander shouts that they have a live one, and the other soldiers open fire on the 8th, terminating him. Pietro, stunned at what he just witnessed, waits for the MTF to clear out so that he can give the soldier a proper burial and to scavenge any leftover supplies. Moving forward, Pietro catches a radio transmission, and although it's difficult for him to make it out, he hears 7, 5. Can you hear me? There is a hole shining in the holes between your eyelids. I have never been to Versailles before. I want to be loved. 9. I'm standing behind you now. 5. I am 2 of us, standing behind you now. The goddess eats the city in the sea. 9. There's a hole in the floor with an answer waiting in it. 7. Look. You're hatching. You're hatching. The message continues to loop, but Pietro turns the radio over to reveal that it's broken beyond repair. Pietro, very confused, decides to continue with his trek to Site 19. While walking through a forest, Pietro comments on just how far away Site 19 is from the safe house, since he can't risk taking any vehicles without being seen. The exclusion suit will keep anyone from being able to perceive that he's there, but that doesn't mean something couldn't come barreling through and collide with him by accident. Pietro wonders why he's even going to Site 19. He doesn't even know what he hopes to accomplish upon arriving there, but he knows for sure that he wants answers. So if that means jumping into the Viper's nest, so be it. Finally, Pietro arrives at Site 19, which he notes was very easy to get into thanks to the exclusion suit and security in shambles. He sees researchers still working at the facility, but they're only discussing ways to achieve the maximum human casualties. Like it's just a normal day, and this is what they've always been doing. He comments, however, on the lack of human spark in their eyes, and he wonders if they're even alive. Pietro logs onto the Foundation database in search of answers. He pieces together a rough timeline of events prior to the Foundation declaring war on humanity on January 2nd, 2020. Starting on December 16th, the O5 Council marks the Pneuma Project as special interest. The project seemed to have been some sort of mass amnesticization program focused on the collective human unconsciousness, also called the psychospace. The idea behind the psychospace is that humanity shares certain structures in our unconscious minds, like instincts. Supposedly, the Foundation found a breakthrough, allowing them to map the entire psychospace for humanity. Pietro can't see the specifics, however, as they're redacted. The following day, the O5 Council comes together for a vote with a unanimous decision to which the Ethics Committee also fully agrees. This is rare on its own, so Pietro wants to learn more, but he can't even see what the vote was about due to it being redacted. A few days later, on the 19th, a series of now redacted instructions were sent to all senior staff members and site directors across the entire Foundation. This is followed by mass suicides and resignations within the Foundation. Notably, one of these members to resign is Dr. Gears. December 22nd contains a number of files sent out to any remaining senior staff and directors with instructions to spread the files amongst their peers. The files were accompanied by a message stating, "Harden your hearts." After this, all suicides and resignations ceased. On Christmas Day, the Foundation terminates the majority of human and human sympathetic anomalies, and all communications in and out of the Foundation are blocked. The Foundation also sent an assassination team after Dr. Gears, but it's not clear whether they were successful or not. On January 2nd, the Foundation sends MTFs to all exclusionary sites with orders to execute everyone. This is when the Foundation declares war on humanity. Pietro realizes that something must have affected the O5 Council after they made a breakthrough into the psychospace. It's not clear exactly what caused this, but it's pretty obvious that it's something anomalous, and it was able to quickly spread through the Foundation. Where it gets more confusing is trying to answer what this infection could want, and why would they kill the exclusionary site personnel instead of recruiting them to their site, like with the other Foundation facilities. Pietro, now very confused after seemingly finding more questions than answers, continues on to look for more information. He locates some documents discussing other anomalies the Foundation has released. SCP-1370 is a robot containing artificial intelligence that is invariably hostile to everyone it encounters. The robot will promise them doom and destruction, but in reality, it's completely harmless. In an attempt to cause panic and chaos, however, the Foundation put SCP-1370 onto every television across the world. The robot is constantly rambling about how it's going to take over the world and more. Pietro remarks that this one isn't so bad. What is bad, however, is SCP-1048, the Builder Bear, who is a small toy bear who is capable of creating incredibly violent copies of itself and of any material it can find. Pietro sees helicopter footage showing hordes of bears rushing the streets of Paris, followed by an enormous red teddy bear in the distance. The Foundation, attempting to get creative, utilizes SCP-1290, which are two electronic devices capable of near-instant teleportation between them. This sounds great until you hear the catch. Objects undergoing teleportation retain their orientation and velocity relative to the Earth, meaning that objects arriving at the other end come out at around 930 meters per second. The Foundation, realizing this device is not worth using, has been previously keeping the items separated at opposite ends of the Earth, one in Colombia and one in Singapore. After they declared war on humanity, however, the Foundation thought of a creative way to cause havoc. They moved the devices to the middle of the Atlantic Ocean to use as a sort of cannon. Their target was a secure GOC facility known as Ganzir, which is designed to house humanity's survivors in the case of the end of the world. Pietro surmises that SCP-1290 is just one of many anomalies the Foundation is using to break into Ganzir. He only wonders why they wouldn't just use missiles. SCP-1440 is an old man who is cursed to walk the Earth, bringing destruction in his wake. Anywhere SCP-1440 goes, death and destruction follow. Due to his nature, the Foundation does not normally contain him, as containment would be impossible. Weirdly, however, 1440 seemingly no longer affects Foundation personnel, as they have been transporting him to a number of different refuge camps to cause severe destruction. The Foundation has never been able to get near 1440 before, so it's very strange that they are now able to transport him around without any adverse effects to themselves. This suggests that the Foundation personnel are no longer human. SCP-1678 is a full-scale recreation of the city London, located approximately a kilometer underneath the real London city. It's unclear exactly what this secret city was meant for, but the Foundation theorizes it to be built for an end-of-the-world scenario, so they've just been keeping an eye on it, as it doesn't cause any real danger. After the Foundation declared war on humanity, however, they completely abandoned the city. With the Foundation making the escape of the real London city impossible, the British Occult Service directs hundreds of citizens of London down into 1678. Disturbingly, however, it seems as if this was a trap set by the Foundation. Once the underground city reached its capacity to hold more refuges, The Foundation detonated a nuclear weapon they had left behind. The next entry isn't for 3 months, and strangely, Pietro states that he has no memory of these past 3 months. Even worse, the files that would normally contain the information needed to figure out where he's been all these months has been deleted. He deduces that he is across the country at this point from Site 19 with unknown scars on his body and a bandage wrapped around his head. The exclusion suit itself isn't actually damaged, so he isn't sure exactly how he was injured, but remarks that he wouldn't be surprised if he walked off a cliff by accident. He's now carrying a briefcase, but he is unsure of its contents. But he is sure of one thing: whatever is in the briefcase is not round, and he needs to get it to SCP-579 immediately. Pietro doesn't know it, but he's carrying an SCP in that briefcase. SCP-055 to be exact. 055 is an anti-memetic SCP. Anyone is able to view it and see exactly what it is, but all of that information instantly leaves their brain upon breaking visual contact with it. So all the Foundation has really been able to figure out is that it's not round. This has actually occurred before in SCP-2998. In that story, a strange alien race takes control of humanity, and with seemingly no other option, a Foundation agent takes SCP-055 into SCP-579's containment chamber, where they fit a round peg into a square hole, as it were, which reset the timeline. Pietro seems to be attempting to do this very thing, but he doesn't know why. He continues walking through the country and remarks on just how far the containment unit for SCP-579 is from Site 19. The only reason he even knows how far it is or way to go is through some documentation he has, but he doesn't know how he obtained it. As he's been walking, has passed by thousands of corpses, including a child he found in a house he was scavenging. He initially thought the child may have been shot in the head, but when he went to bury him, he began to see hundreds of pale worms wriggling underneath the boy's skin. They poured out of his body as soon as he touched them, but weirdly, they all had the boy's face and were laughing as they scurried into a nearby drain. Pietro is struggling to cope with what he's seen out here and decides not to bury anyone else and continues on. He realizes that if he's ever overwhelmed in a situation, he can simply open the briefcase and find himself miles ahead on his journey and feeling much better about himself as well. This tells us that SCP-055 is likely wiping out more than just the knowledge of what it is, but also whole blocks of time from Pietro's memory. He finds a laptop on the corpse of a Foundation agent he found half buried in the woods. On this laptop contains more information regarding the anomalies that the Foundation is using against humanity. SCP-5000 is a facility underneath the Yellowstone Park. It can be used to recreate humanity and essentially repopulate the Earth in case of a disaster. But this new Foundation doesn't want to see this happen. To stop anyone from using SCP-5000 and repopulating the Earth, the Foundation somehow causes the Yellowstone supervolcano to erupt, completely destroying SCP-5000 and blanketing most of the country in ash. This is important to note because it shows that the Foundation is not set on wiping out humanity as it is and trying to rebuild it in their new image, whatever that is. But instead, they're trying to ensure the permanent extinction of humanity. SCP-2200 is a bit difficult to summarize in a few short words, but basically it's a sword that causes the victims killed with it to be recreated in metal form on a remote island. These metal copies of people still retain their former memories as well as their personalities, but they no longer have the need to eat, drink, or sleep. Despite this, they are not immortal and can still die. For whatever reason, the Foundation found a way to mass produce these swords which automatically teleport to individuals who are most likely to use them. Because of this, the island where the metal copies materialize is completely overflowing with living copies trapped under dead ones. SCP-2241 is a 7-year-old boy with fledgling reality bender abilities that the Foundation was interested in, specifically the 05 Council, who wanted to raise the boy to use him as a tool. It seems as if whatever the Foundation did worked, as the boy has been sent to several refuge camps to completely wipe them out. Since they're still having trouble breaking into Ganzir, the Foundation sent him there as well. SCP-2639 are three teenagers who somehow got trapped in a computer server running the video game Quake. These three are able to manifest occasionally in the real world for a short time, where they'll carry out a deathmatch. This deathmatch results in real-world death and destruction for any caught in the crossfire. Since the three are immortal, contain heavy weaponry, and are very bored, the Foundation had previously recruited them as an MTF. They were sent into extreme situations where the neutralization of hostile non-human targets. In a twisted turn of events, the Foundation sent the three teenagers into refuge camps, telling them that the inhabitants were horrible monsters that had escaped containment. The teens quickly realized this wasn't the case, and ceased all hostile actions on the Foundation's behalf. Moving on, we find Pietro writing in his journal around a fire. Sitting beside him are a group of GOC soldiers who, because of the exclusionary suit, do not know he is there. He appreciates the company either way, and even considers asking them for help with getting to SCP-579, but decides not to. He remarks how he's more of a ghost than a tourist now. He notes that the GOC soldiers seemingly have nowhere to go as they're just wandering aimlessly. During this time, he's able to tap into the GOC database and retrieves an interview log from inside Ganzir. The interview is a commander of the GOC, Morrison, and the interviewee is a captured MTF agent, Samuel Ross. Morrison had caught and captured MTF Omega-2 secret keepers while they tried to sneak into the secure bunker. So far, no one on the team has spoken except for Ross. Ross states that it's because they've met before during a joint operation between the Foundation and the GOC a few years back. When Morrison caught the MTF, they were trying to sneak in amongst the refugees. Once they were spotted, however, the MTF opened fire on the crowd, taking many lives before they were captured. When asked if he thinks that's crazy, Ross simply laughs, saying that the GOC are crazy as well, if they think they can do anything to stop the Foundation. When threatened with torture, Ross simply laughs and says that they can do whatever they please to him. He's no longer afraid after he realized that you're not supposed to feel pain. Morrison asks what he means, and Ross hesitates, telling him that he wouldn't want him to say. Morrison responds that he does, but Ross says he wasn't talking to Morrison. Upon further pressuring, Ross decides to talk, but what he says is inaudible on the recording. A doctor present in the room tells him that he'll have to speak up as the microphone only has so much gain. What Ross says next is removed from the record, but both Morrison and the doctor can be heard loudly screaming with the sounds of wet cracks and rushing wind heard. Ross says they've done this to themselves, and he had warned them. He really liked them, so he was trying to be nice. He remarks that they fight in the light, so you can die in the dark. This is a twist on a common Foundation's motto. We die in the dark, so you could live in the light. The log ends with Ross calling them disgusting, and Pietro notes that right after this, some emergency resulted in the destruction of Ganzir. The second half of this interview log is very curious, as it is very similar to another interview log with SCP-682, the hard-to-destroy reptile. SCP-682 is notorious for hating all life, and in an interview log with SCP-682, shortly after it had just brutally slaughtered some farmers, he can be seen reluctant to speak. It mumbles something incomprehensible, so the doctor present remarks that the microphone only has so much gain and it needs to be moved closer. While mauling the D-Class's body, who is tasked with moving the microphone, SCP-682 is heard saying that they were disgusting. This isn't just a coincidence, and there's more to it than just this, but for now, just take note of this. Pietro makes another journal entry, stating that it's beginning to be even harder to keep pushing forwards. He says the GOC has been almost entirely wiped out, and with it, the hope of humanity. And apparently, the Foundation have been spreading various viruses across the world. Pietro says he's seen corpses in pretty much every way you could think of, including still walking around. Hez trying to use the briefcase to skip time in a sense and get there faster, without having to struggle as much with the mental and physical challenges his journey has brought upon him. But sadly, it seems as if the briefcase's effects are wearing off. When he opens the briefcase now, he doesn't jump as far ahead in time and also doesn't feel as good afterwards. He ponders if he's growing numb to it and wonders why he's even going to SCP-579. Now we get some more information regarding the SCPs being used by the Foundation. SCP-3078 is a series of images that causes viewers to break out in uncontrollable laughter until dying by suffocation. The Church of the Broken God, initially trying to help by getting the internet back online, quickly realized this was a mistake. As the Foundation spreads thousands of copies of SCP-3078 until the Church finally brought the internet back down again. SCP-3179 is a highly intelligent liquid metal alien capable of expanding its mass, altering its form, and creating smaller entities that can act autonomously. It was originally found by a branch of the Church of the Broken God, who believed it to be sent by their deity. They soon discovered, however, that it was invariably hostile. Fortunately, they were able to contain it and leave it up to the Foundation to deal with. Unfortunately, however, the new Foundation has just released it, and it's infinitely creating essentially Terminators. SCP-3199 are large, hostile humanoid entities who continually lay very durable eggs containing more of their species. They'll hunt any living creature around their hatchlings, liquefying internal organs and bones, and feeding the corpses to their young. The Foundation has been trying to get pretty creative with their use of SCPs in this war, but this one was pretty simple. The Foundation quickly began airdropping the creature's eggs across the world. Pietro continues his journey, but remarks on how difficult it has become. He can barely push on and is seeing very strange things out in the world, such as what he calls blinkers, which he thinks were created by the Foundation. They look like MTF soldiers, but they're actually statues with empty sockets for eyes and huge blades for arms. If you look at them, they can't move, but when you look away, they instantly move in to kill you. So it seems as if the Foundation has somehow managed to create copies of SCP-173. They don't kill Pietro if he looks away, but they do stop moving when he's looking. So he figures they can feel his presence and will eventually start winging at everything trying to kill him, so he's doing his best to avoid them. He remarks that the second thing he saw was a lot weirder. On the horizon was a person stretched out, or like the space around them was stretched out and they were being stretched along with it, kinda like a bad Photoshop effect. Their body went from the ground up to the clouds, and their jaw swung at right angles. There were these gaps as well, black gaps in space around its body, like wings. It just floated forwards like that. He says there were Foundation guys there too, but they were fighting it, shooting it with guns and rockets. He remarks on how messed up it is that he thinks the Foundation fighting an anomaly is weird. He thinks that maybe they were like him and managed to get out when this all kicked off. He thought about talking to them, but decided not to as it's too big of a risk. Finally, we have our last few logs containing information regarding the different anomalies used in this war. SCP-4290 was a massive entity that had been sealed away 10,000 years ago, and then died 9,000 years ago due to malnutrition, making it effectively neutralized. The Foundation, however, were not finished with 4290 as they took SCP-8, a virus that reanimates corpses as zombies, then enhancing it using SCP-914, and revived the entity. A group from the Serpent's Hand, had known as Kaijumancers, tried to take it on, but the results are unknown, and Pietro says that they should have gone with the rest of the Serpent's Hand when they detached the Wanderer's library from this universe. SCP-4666 is quite a disturbing entity that will stalk and kill families, as well as abduct a child during the Christmas season. This child will be forced to create toys out of other children. The Foundation finds a way to use a temporal anomaly to essentially make it Christmas every day, which under normal circumstances doesn't seem so bad, but this allows the Yule Man to manifest year-round. There are presumably more examples, but Pietro decides that nobody's ever gonna read this anyways, and stops. Moving forwards, Pietro meets a young teenage girl sitting at a makeshift fire in an abandoned jewelry store. He recognizes the ruby amulet hanging around the girl's neck as SCP-963, meaning that this is truly Dr. Bright. Pietro turns off the perception filter on the suit, startling Bright with his sudden appearance. Bright immediately suspects Pietro was sent here by the Foundation to kill him, but Pietro gets him to relax, saying he managed to get away from the Foundation. Bright remarks that Pietro's face looks like a disaster and desperately needs sleep, despite Pietro responded that he's fine. Pietro sits across from Bright and tells him that he got lucky when this all started, managing to make it into the suit. Now, Dr. Bright is of course a senior staff member, meaning he received those files that the O5 sent to all senior staff and site directors. He states that the first set of files were a series of instructions that caused suicides and resignations. However, Bright can't remember the specific instructions thanks to the second set of files. These were later sent out to all personnel, and Bright reveals that they were just a bunch of images of eggs, trees, and other religious stuff. It didn't mean anything to Bright, and he suspects that whatever effect that it would have had was nullified by his amulet. Pietro suggests that maybe it was some sort of mimetic agent, but Bright disagrees, saying that he knows what a mimetic agent feels like, and this was different. It felt like he was supposed to be released from something rather than something being forced on him. Ultimately, he's unsure as to exactly what is happening. Pietro tells him that he's going to SCP-579, and Bright says that there are easier ways to commit suicide, as not even he knows what SCP-579 is, and he's a pretty big deal. Bright instead is heading towards SCP-1437, an endless hole that leads to an unknown number of parallel universes. He plans to throw the amulet down the hole and see where he wakes up. The two wish each other luck with their respective journeys and part ways. We skip ahead to Pietro outside of the site containing SCP-579, but some files have been deleted, so we don't know what's happened to get him to this point. This is supposed to be an extremely secure site, but Pietro was surprised to be greeted by no security. He remarks on how it looks like the site has been abandoned for a while, and he's able to simply walk in. He's having difficulty breathing and has a feeling of an impending end. As he walks closer, he feels like someone is pressing a gun against the back of his head, pushing him forward. He doesn't know what SCP-579 is, but he knows that it's looking at him. As Pietro walks deeper inside the facility, he quickly realizes he's not alone, but instead is surrounded by blinkers. It seems like the Foundation packed the facility full of them. What's worse is it turns out he was right from earlier. The blinkers can sense he's there, and they begin slashing everything in sight. One of them puts a major gash in his leg, but he knows he must continue and get to SCP-579. As he's making his way towards the containment chamber for 579, he realizes that the blinkers aren't just following him, they're also heading towards SCP-579's containment chamber, in hopes of cutting him off. Pietro picks up the pace and finally makes it into the containment chamber. The door closes behind him, and he's thankful that it's reinforced, which gives him at least a few minutes to plan his next move. There are a number of instruments monitoring SCP-579, but even without them, he knows that SCP-579 is here because he can feel it. There's a hole in the floor that leads to SCP-579, but it's not a direct drop, as Pietro hoped that he could just throw the briefcase down. Instead, it looks like he's going to have to jump down the hole and throw the briefcase on the way down, inevitably resulting in his death. Pietro comments that he realized he's not the detective in a detective story, but instead the murder victim. He ponders why this is happening. Why did the Foundation send out those files? Why did Ganser fall? Why did he take this briefcase across the world? Why is he here? And why is he going to die? He begs anyone reading this to figure it out, and then he drops down the hole. We see a black image labeled as SCP-579 before a final journal entry from Pietro reading, "Oh, so that's how it is," before Pietro's life signs are lost. This is when he appeared dead in the suit inside of SCP-579's containment cell. So, Pietro was able to reset the timeline, but it's finally time to explain why. Here are clues sprinkled throughout this entire article that we can piece together, but the black image at the end is a big one. Hidden in the image is the secret dialogue between two members of the O5 Council. One is looking at a document with shaking hands, asking if this is confirmed. The other nods, saying that they got the report from Numa's staff yesterday. It's everyone, even the council. The first overseer notes his incredulity in finding himself agreeing with that damned lizard. They'll have to disseminate a cure among personnel before they get things underway. because it'll try to stop them otherwise. The other overseer asks God to help them, but the first rebukes him, saying that that's it talking. The lizard is obviously referencing SCP-682, who is a crucial piece of this puzzle. But who is this it they're referring to? Well, let's go back to Project Pneuma, which apparently found something shocking in the human psychospace. This means that they found something intrinsically present in the unconscious minds of every human, and it was startling enough to cause the Foundation to want to wipe out humanity. What's more, is this discovery led the O5 Council to agree with SCP-682, who despises all life. The Council spread a series of instructions to their senior staff members, which we don't get to know about, but it did lead many of them to kill themselves or resign. This likely means that they were informed of what was about to happen to the world, but weren't mentally altered just yet. This happened with the second set of files, which were spread across most of the Foundation, immediately ceasing all suicides and resignations because now everyone was fully committed to wiping out humanity. While some would believe this to be a mimetic agent that forcibly altered the Foundation's thinking, Bright confirms that it was not. Whatever was in the second set of files released something in their brains, allowing them to see what was in the psychospace that makes humanity disgusting. Essentially, what they were released from was humanity, becoming outsiders like SCP-682. This process involved a completely different way of thinking on multiple levels, as for 1. They no longer felt pain, as shown in the stabbing test. And 2. They were no longer considered part of humanity, as shown by SCP-1440, which destroys anything nearby connected to humanity. Dr. Bright wasn't affected by the second set of files because of his amulet, making him immortal, which already disconnects him from humanity. It's interesting that the project that discovered all this was known as Pneuma, which is an ancient Greek word meaning breath, but is also used in religious context to mean spirit or soul. Pneumatology is the study of the Holy Spirit, an aspect of God that makes up the Holy Trinity. The it referred to before by the O5 Council could actually be the human soul, an essential part of what makes us human. The researchers that Pietro came across in Site-19 were missing a spark from their eyes, perhaps suggesting that they no longer possessed a soul. It's important to note that the GOC's fortress was named Ganzir, after a palace in the Sumerian underworld, where the goddess Ereshkigal ruled over the dead. Those that still had souls, the refugees were allowed to enter Ganzir, but those without them, the Foundation agents, relentlessly worked to break in. Ganzir finally fell because the soulless came inside. Perhaps the stretched figure that the Foundation was fighting was indeed the Holy Spirit, who helped guide Pietro towards the end's goal so that humanity could be saved. Regardless of what you make of SCP-5000-Y, it's a fantastic tale and cements itself as one of the best written SCPs. In the end, maybe it doesn't really matter to find all the answers to the question why, as there always be more questions. But we'll leave you guys off with one more question. If this happened once, then what's stopping it from happening again? And that wraps up our deep dive into the mysterious SCP-5000. Still got questions? Or have your own theories? Drop them in the comments below. We love hearing your insights. If you enjoyed this exploration, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to SCP Files for more SCP content. Also, ring that notification bell so you won't miss our next file uncovering the secrets of the SCP universe.